London is a city full of espionage locations. But last year there was something very special in Britain's National Archives. A not so widely known exhibition to celebrate the 115th anniversary of UK's domestic spy agency, officially known as the Security Service, but more widely known as the MI5. Welcome to Spy Spots. The National Archives are located approximately in the middle between Heathrow Airport and the centre of London, in an area called Richmond. An area far from all of the touristic locations of London, but still full of history. For instance, right next to Richmond, there is a quiet and beautiful neighbourhood called Chiswick. You wouldn't expect to find anything unusual there, but in Chiswick, you'll find this. One of the most secret weapons of the Nazi Germany during the Second World War was the V2 rocket, which nowadays is considered the world's first long-range guided ballistic missile. So these were the very first V2 rocket that was targeting London, fell on September 8th, killing 3 people. But back to the main subject of this episode, let's go to the National Archives. A place that most researchers love. It's clean, tidy, organized, and in an excellent location, away from the busy city center. There is even an outdoor area for the few sunny days, but we're diverting, so let's go back to our topic. 2025 was a very special year for MI5, since it marked its 115th anniversary, and for this reason they opened the small spy exhibition inside the National Archives. Its name was MI5 Official Secrets, and despite being small, it provided a rare glimpse into some of its lesser-known spy history. Apparently we visited it, and here is what we saw. As you enter the National Archives, you were greeted with this display. It's from a British spy thriller television series called Slow Horses that revolves around an MI5 unit, and it's inspired by the Slough House novels of Mick Heron. And to the left of that you had the main entrance, and right there you could find this small but very unique spy exhibition. Even before you entered, there were tables with files that were presenting some of the most widely known spy cases in MI5's history. The exhibition itself was organized in historical order, starting from the early days and moving to the modern times. Also, the National Archives have now digitized this entire exhibition and is also available online. The exhibition literally started from the historical documents related to the Official Secrets Act that set the foundations of MI5, and some of the early 1910s and 1920s MI5 work. An unusual artifact, which also indicates how extensive MI5's archive is, was this lemon from Carl Miller, who had entered Britain in 1915, claiming to be a Russian shipping agent. The deception failed and Miller was arrested. Let's hear what MI5 says about this.
This lemon was found in a dressing table drawer at his lodgings. Muller used the juice of the lemon to write a secret message about troop movements between the lines of this apparently innocent business letter, which was intercepted. Intercepting and checking letters was vital to counter-espionage work. So vital that a special postal censorship department, MI9, was established. By the end of the war, it had a staff of 4,861, 3/4 of them women.
Of course, in the 1930s and 40s, the threat landscape changed for the UK, and MI5 adapted accordingly. And of course, right after that, there was the Second World War. In this part of the exhibition, we see some very unique artifacts of MI5 agent Eric Roberts, alias Jack King, recruited by agent runner Maxwell Knight in the 1920s and joined MI5 in 1940. He infiltrated Nazi sympathizers in the UK, pretending to be a covert Gestapo officer. Then the story of a double agent, codenamed TATE, where, as MI5 stated, one such was Wolf Schmidt, codenamed TATE after his recruitment by MI5. The false intelligence that Schmidt relayed was so convincing that the Germans awarded him the Iron Cross. Schmidt was part of a network of over 120 double agents, known as the Double Cross. This system was one of MI5's most dazzling successes. As part of Operation Fortitude, they helped convince the Germans that the main Allied landings in 1944 would happen along the areas of the European coast, including the Pas-de-Calais, rather than Normandy. Fun fact, the Double Cross is what inspired Ian Fleming to come up with a 00 code for James Bond in his novels. The exhibition also includes some artifacts from Camp 020. As we read, Camp 020 was set up in the 1940s at MI5's request. It became a valuable part of MI5's double-cross operations. 440 suspected German spies were sent here. 11 were turned into double agents, some of them the most successful of the double-cross agents, and 14 were executed. From September 1940, almost all interrogations of prisoners at Camp 020 were carried out by MI5 staff. And in terms of tradecraft, 3 shows 2 glass vials from around 1944, described as: the glass vial on the left contains a stud from one of Broderson's boots, and the vial on the right contains fragments of quinine putty extracted from the stud. The putty would have allowed Broderson to make invisible link for secret messages. And on number 4, this close-up photograph reveals the quinine putty used for secret writing stuffed into Broderson's boot eyelets. It was also found in his teeth and under his nails. A few more artifacts from the double-cross operation, like this cipher wheel described as: torn up code wheel, torch and battery, forged British ID card, road map of Great Britain, 2 photographs of a woman and girl, 1941. These are some of the possessions found on Jacobs when he was captured almost immediately after landing. The photographs, perhaps removed from a locket, were sewn into his clothing. Even more on the double-cross operation. And then we move to the Cold War, the peak of espionage activity for many. Artifacts from Klaus Fuchs, a Nazi nuclear scientist who moved to the US after the Second World War and started working in the Manhattan Project, the creation of the atomic bomb, but secretly was recruited by the Soviet KGB as their spy, one of the most well-known cases of early nuclear espionage. Or the creation of MI5's A4, its surveillance arm, along with some of its early tools. A Pi desk microphone, the Robot Star 50 miniature camera, and the Polaroid SX70 land camera. This was used for covert entry operations. Specifically, covert entry experts from A branch were using the SX70 to take photos of everything before placing a listening device or copying a document to ensure they return everything back to as it was before they entered. Ensure it will appear as if they were never there. Following that, we have Operation Foot, the expulsion of 105 Soviet officials, primarily Soviet spies, in 1971. And definitely a highlight of the exhibition was this mock-up of Blunt's flat. Anthony Blunt became one of the most important spies of the KGB, deep inside the British government and royal family, part of a spy ring that became known as the Cambridge Five, and this exhibition covers all of them. There are also a few hints about the tradecraft used, like here, from the so-called Portland spy ring and the Cambridge Five. Gordon Lonsdale and the Krogers used everyday household objects, such as this tin of talcum powder, to conceal the equipment they used to encrypt and transmit information to Moscow. A microdot reader was tucked inside the hidden compartment in this tin, Microdots contain text or images reduced in size to that of a full stop. And there was even something from GCHQ on display, specifically from the Portland spy ring. This 1960s radio transmitter described as the Krogers flash transmission radio equipment was found buried at their property. This advanced technology could send messages to their Soviet handlers at extremely high speeds. The 1990s and 2000s changed the focus of MI5 to be more on counter-terrorism, and the exhibition reflected that, with artifacts like this IRA mortar bomb from 1991, or this that is described as, in the summer of 2006, Operation Overt, the largest counter-terrorist operation in the history of MI5 and the Metropolitan Police, successfully disrupted an Al-Qaeda plot. Suicide bombers planned to detonate liquid explosives disguised as soft drinks on 7 flights leaving Heathrow for North American cities. MI5 assessed the plot as potentially the most dangerous terrorist conspiracy in British history, and the plotters were convicted on terrorist and other offences. Then the poisoning of the Russian FSB officer Alexander Litvinenko, who defected to London to work for the British and was assassinated with polonium-210 in 2006 by covert Russian operatives. There were a few more things that we didn't cover, but hopefully that gave you a good idea of the exhibition. Also at the exit, there was a small gift shop, so we bought a couple of items to remember this visit. As mentioned during the opening of this episode, London has always been a very important location for espionage activities, and it's no surprise that even outside the city centre, almost everywhere you look, you can find some significant spy case that took place there. And if the road ever leads you to this part of London, you can visit any of the locations mentioned in this exhibition, from Blunt's house to MI5's original headquarters, Krogers, or even the V2 Rocket Memorial in Chiswick. And remember all the secret history that surrounds those locations. It goes without saying that similar events take place today too, not only in London, but every part of the world. And most of it will remain unknown for many years. It's why we always remind you that nothing is as it seems.